Welcome back, Austin P alumni, students, and friends, to another edition of our Govs Lead Conversations. Today, we are speaking with one of Austin P's academic leaders, Dr. Mickey Hepner, Dean for the College of Business. Now, this will be a very valuable conversation as Dr. Hepner guides us and brings important insight into today's world from an economic standpoint. Dr. Hepner, first of all, we want to thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here with us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to have this discussion.
This will be a good one, something that I'm very interested to hear your insight from. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, Dr. Hepner, in general, if you could just explain the overall impact of the COVID-19 virus and what it's done to the economy up until this point today.
This has really been a shocking development over the last 30, 60, 90 days. It's almost as if a natural disaster has hit not just a city or a state or even a nation, but the entire world. And so we're seeing really unprecedented economic destruction that certainly we haven't seen in my lifetime. And we're certainly uncertain about what's going to come in the future. Over the last 5 weeks, we've seen 26 million Americans file for initial unemployment claims. Some surveys indicate that there's another 6 to 8 million that just haven't gone through the process yet to file their claims. Just this week, the federal government announced that the U.S. economy, for the first time since the 2008-2009 recession, started to retract and decline by almost 5% in the first quarter, which translates really into a 15 to 20% decline from just the month of March alone. The severity is something we really haven't seen before, and so we're certainly trying to figure out exactly what this means going forward.
So let's talk about the overall general American household. So how well prepared do you think is the typical American household and or small business for the coming months and years?
So this is something that is really problematic for us because we're just not conditioned for these once-in-a-lifetime types of economic shocks, especially when families are living paycheck to paycheck, week to week, month to month. You have businesses that have some cash reserves, but certainly not enough to go for 3 or 6 or 9 months, which they may be asked to do. We're just not prepared or conditioned for these kind of events because we just don't see them very often. We can prepare for things that happen more frequently, but these once-in-a-lifetime type of events just shake all of us and shake all of our assumptions to our core and make it very difficult for us to make our way through them. So that is part of the reason that this would be an especially challenging period of time over the next 3 to 6 to 9 months as we try to absorb something we really weren't prepared for.
So how do you think the economy has been impacted by the overall stay-at-home orders right now?
So there are two different main effects at work with these orders. The first one that we see and the one that you can see most obviously, when people stay home, they aren't going out to eat, they aren't going shopping, they aren't interacting, they aren't going to work. And so businesses have to close down. So that's the initial effect, the initial shock, and that's what we're seeing when we see all these unemployment claims. There's going to be a secondary effect, a ripple, if you will. All of us in an economy are connected to each other. And because we're connected to each other, whenever a big segment of the economy struggles, it will end up affecting all of us at some point. And so those secondary effects will be coming over the next month to 2 months to 3 months to 6 months, even 9 months down the road. But on the other hand, all of that is the gloomy side of things. I do want to point out that most economists would argue that the stay-at-home orders, the stay-at-home behavior has actually been on the net beneficial for the economy, just for the fact that it would have been much worse. The strain on the healthcare system would have been much more immense. The number of infections would have been much stronger. The number of deaths would have been much higher. And as a result, the fear and the anxiety that consumers and businesses would have faced would have been much higher than it will be because we've engaged in these activities. That fear and anxiety would have made things, by most economic projections, much worse than what we've been going through already. So it's been horrible what we're seeing. It's been painful and unprecedented, but it's better than what the alternative would have been if we had just let the virus go unrestrained.
Absolutely. That's kind of a scary thought to think of the way that it could have been had we not had these stay-at-home orders. So it's encouraging to hear that. Dr. Hepner, we hear the word new normal come up a lot in the last 2 months, 2 to 3 months. So now what will happen from your standpoint to the economy when people start going back to their somewhat normal routines, or what we might call new normal routines?
So this is the part that we really don't understand quite yet. we can look at past economic crises and see how people responded. And we know, for instance, in the 1930s, that the fact that so many people lost their savings, that it permanently changed the way people saved and spent money. And that lasted for decades. And so it would not be surprising that there will be changes in behavior that persist well beyond this particular crisis that extend for years down the road. And that could have a significant economic impact, and is one of the reasons why I'm probably a little bit more pessimistic about how quickly the economy as a whole rebounds through this crisis than some other analysts are, because I do think it's going to be much more difficult for those in the hospitality industry to be able to recover quickly, because unfortunately we have not eradicated the virus. It will be with us for the next several months, and that's whether we have a big spike in infections in the summer or fall again or not. People will remain cautious. They will remain concerned. They will still constrain and restrain their activity, which will have a dampening effect on economic performance throughout the summer and into the fall.
So do you think, from your standpoint, when talking about social distancing or stay-at-home orders, do you think that could change economic behaviors permanently?
Well, it depends on how we define permanently, but certainly I think it will affect economic behavior over the next year or two. And as a result, will create ripple effects that will be permanent. It will become much more common for us to continue to order more things online and shop for things online. And as a result, retail industries that have grown up and been supported will continue to struggle and suffer. And there will be some hesitation on efforts to gather and have big, large gatherings, and things like concerts and sporting events will continue to struggle and suffer for months and years ahead of time as we learn how to grapple with life in this new way. So I think some behaviors are going to continue to change and will be permanent. Some behaviors will return to somewhat of a normal state in the next few months. But the virus is here, the social distancing is here, and a lot of that is not going to change, certainly over the next several years.
So America has seemed to jump in fairly quickly with everything going on. We've had health officials and healthcare workers trying to find a vaccine extremely quickly. On the flip side, we have had the government jump in very quickly to try to help those small businesses and just businesses in general. So how do you think these fiscal policies have supported the economy?
So far, it's been incredibly helpful, and there's always going to be frustration with how we implement and operationalize new policies, and we're trying to ramp them up so quickly. But getting money into the hands of people who are struggling to pay their mortgage, to pay their food bills, getting money into the hands of businesses that are struggling with laying off workers and trying to keep their doors open and being able to reopen whenever the economy is ready to reopen. All of those are tremendously valuable. The federal government has pumped more than $2 trillion of funds into the economy to help us get through this phase, right? The initial shock. But here's the thing that I think we also have to grapple with. That won't be enough. And what the federal government has done so far has helped us get through this stage, but the shock, the consequences for what we're going through are going to persist for a little bit while longer. And we still haven't seen all of the ripples. We're still in the first phase, the first shock. In the next 6 months, we're going to see state and local governments probably have about a $500 billion shortfall in tax collections. That means those governments are going to have to start making significant cuts to things like education, healthcare, roads, and prisons, the things that governments spend money on. And unless the federal government jumps in and provide additional funding for that, that's also going to create a drain on economic activity as well. You're going to have these secondary industries that aren't really affected today by the shutdown, but are going to be affected over the next month or two by the continued slowing of economic activity. And so they're going to end up having problems as well. So the fiscal stimulus that we've seen so far has been tremendously valuable to helping us get through this initial shock, the first 6 weeks really of this shock, and the next few weeks to come. But there needs to be more rounds as we certainly head into May and over the summer in order for us to get fully through this crisis economically. Otherwise, we do face the risk of a relapse, which is something we've seen in these major crises before, that these secondary effects often create a rebound recession. The economy rebounds initially, but then those ripple effects kick in and drags down economic recovery after that. So that's one of my next concerns going forward. We've done a really nice job marshaling our federal government to make it possible for us to get to this point. Now we need to prepare for what's to come.
What's to come? So in your mind, do you see the economy, the American economy, getting back to somewhat, I guess, what you would call normal? And if so, how many years, how many months, when do you think that would take place?
Yes, it will get back to normal, and yes, it will get stronger than it ever has been before. Economies do tend to grow over time, and we've gone through crises before. We've always recovered, and we've always gotten stronger. And so, yes, that will happen. Yes, better days are coming. But I tend to be more on the pessimistic side. I do think it's going to take a little bit longer than what many analysts are expecting. I do think we're talking months into more than a year for us to get back to full strength. And I think a number of certainly investment analysts right now are a little bit optimistic that there won't be a rebound in infections, that there won't be this decline in economic activity. I still think we're on the front end of the economic recession, and so we will get through it. We'll come out stronger on the other end, but I do think we're looking at 9 to 12 to 15 months before we really put this behind us.
Dr. Hepner, just one more question before we close things out. So what does all this mean for an investor's portfolio?
That's an incredibly important question. So my first bit of advice would be not to look at the day-to-day fluctuations in the market. When you have periods like this where there are incredible levels of uncertainty, there are going to be days where there are incredible gains. There are going to be days where there are incredible losses. The challenging times are not behind us. The good times are not behind us either. And so the first thing is don't worry about the day-to-day fluctuations, but think about what your strategies are for the long term. And in the long term, things will be okay. The American economy will be strong again. If you are invested in equities and you have a longer term horizon and are able to withstand the fluctuations over the next, and again, I think we're in the, certainly from investment portfolios, the next 6 months especially will be certainly a lot more variable. And if you're able to withstand that over the next 6 months, then hold strong, keep stocking money away into savings as you can and build that portfolio as you can, because there will be a rebound. There will be better days ahead as we get through this. So focus on the opportunities of tomorrow.
Dr. Hepner, it's been very encouraging getting to hear your insight and take from what's going on from an economy standpoint. I know that's information that people are going to find very valuable. So I appreciate you taking the time and being here with us today. I hope things are going good for work for you, staying at home and maybe making your commute to and from work. But thank you again for taking the time to be with us.
Well, it's been a delight to chat with you, Nikki, and this is an incredible university and an exciting time, and I'm still incredibly proud to be a governor and for all the good things that are happening at Austin Peay. I still believe our best days are ahead of us, and thanks to the work that you do and so many people at the university and all of our alumni who continue to make a difference in this world. So thank you for the chance to be here today.
Absolutely. It's been a good conversation. Alumni, students, friends, thank you for joining us. We welcome you to be here with us again next Thursday. And in the meantime, take care, stay healthy, and let's go Peay.